But now let's hear from the Palestinian side. Joining me now via Skype from London is the Palestinian ambassador to the UK, formerly the PLO's man in Washington, Husam Zomlot. Ambassador, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Before we get to those issues, what's the situation with coronavirus in Palestine? There are reports of 47% of essential medicines in Gaza depleted or close to running out.
It's very acute and alarming, I must say. Palestine, like the rest of the world, has been affected by the pandemic. Our first response was absolutely effective. An immediate lockdown as early as the 5th of March. We were among the very first nations to actually apply lockdowns nationally. The World Health Organization hailed the quick response, and we were able to avert April, May with very minimal numbers. It is much worse in Israel. The numbers in Israel, both infections and death, is very high. And while we were very successful in actually containing and controlling the coronavirus, came the occupation virus, which has really led to the spread of the coronavirus. The biggest soft spot for us was Palestinian workers working in Israel, and we were trying to actually communicate that they either should stay where they are or should they come back, they should quarantine. And since June, that has been the biggest source of infection, particularly in the West Bank, and therefore the virus of occupation and our inability to control our own borders have not allowed us really to continue the very effective and efficient way of dealing with the virus. Having said all that, let me please, through your program, to convey our salute and gratitude for our white army of doctors and nurses. They are engaged now as we speak in a national battle to contain this virus. We're very worried about Gaza, especially in the last few weeks. Numbers have spiked to unprecedented level. Until the 28th of August, there were only 3 deaths in Gaza and around 200 reported cases. Now we're talking about more than 2,800 confirmed cases. As you know, Gaza has been under a lockdown by Israel since at least 2007. Its health sector is absolutely unable to deal with such a pandemic, and therefore we call on the Israeli occupation to lift its blockade immediately, because should such a virus spread in Gaza, it would be nothing less than catastrophic. We hope that we will be able collectively as Palestinians, with the help of the international community, to contain such a very dangerous virus and to contain the Israeli virus of occupation.
Well, let's get to occupation, because refusal to recognize Israel is no longer the standard response from Arab nations. Before Ehud Barak ended his interview suddenly on Going Underground on Saturday's show, he said the Abraham Accords show the Arab world a kind of waking up from a blind hatred towards Israel. What have you made of the Abraham Accords? We actually had the editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post who said the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Yeah, that's the spin. And please, my friend, don't call it Abrahamic Accords. Prophet Abraham, who's buried in Hebron, Palestine, is the father of all prophets because he represents a symbol of unity. He's the father of all of us, symbol of unity, of respect, of justice, of sacrifice.
Between Jews, Christians and Muslims, but Trump has called it that. Donald Trump calls it that.
Yeah, but Donald Trump is cheaply using the grand name of Abraham for a very cheap exercise of actually election circus. This is just some countries paying election gifts, election favors.
Trump says it's historic. What do you mean? What do you mean election favors? Why do you think the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain now recognize diplomatically the Israeli state?
It is primarily, they should call it that, election favors to Netanyahu and Trump, because, normalization is an act that was always meant to reward Israel for ending its occupation. That reward now is rewarding illegality, is rewarding the occupation, the colonization, the besiegement of our people in Gaza, the de-Palestinization of Jerusalem. We are now no longer trying to create a just situation. We are just rewarding the current status quo. and reality. That's why we rejected it, and we believe it was a major, major setback in our efforts collectively to actually reach a genuine, lasting peace. Everybody knew that Israel will not heed our calls for peace unless either it has a carrot or it has a major stick. Taking that carrot at this point in time, rewarded for absolutely nothing except illegality, claiming falsely that Israel has stopped annexation when annexation is happening on the ground on a daily